Hi everyone, you're welcome to my YouTube channel on Research and Statistics Mind with Dr. Samson Chukwueze. Today, let's discuss the guides to understanding concepts, constructs, and variables in research and statistics. Of course, without data, which is often drawn from the measurement of variables, it will be difficult to interpret our research findings and draw inferences about our study. So, a good understanding of concepts, constructs, and variables will help researchers indeed to design good conceptual framework, structural models, formulate hypotheses, testable hypotheses to be precise, apply statistics, appropriate statistics, and draw inference. So, I want us to get it clear that concepts, constructs, and variables are very important in research, and we cannot avoid it. But before I continue with this lesson, I want to plead that you subscribe to my channel. If you have not done so, to subscribe, just hit the red light button below this video. Then hit the bell symbol that pops up immediately. You can share this video. If you like it so well, share with your colleagues and friends. Thank you for this tutorial. Now, let's go into the lesson properly. Concepts is actually very important in every human endeavor. Imagine this world existing without the use of concepts. It means our communication cannot work. So concept helps us to communicate this world. The same applies to researchers who wants to communicate their results, their investigation. The use of concepts become very important. So what is a concept? A concept is simply defined as a generalizable meaning, which is generally accepted meaning, properties or characteristics of people, places, events, or objects. This word generalizable simply means that it's the same in our mind. When I say table, the word table is the same in our mind. A picture that we have in mind about table, or mental image we have in mind about table, is the same. If I say the word anger or anxiety, as the case may be, that word anger, we have a mental image of what anger simply means in our mind. That makes it a concept. So a measuring concept, our interest is not on the quantity, that is in the measurement. In talking about concept or discussing concepts, our interest is not about on the measurement, but about on generalizable mental image, about the meaning, properties of what we are talking about. So a concept is generalizable. When you want to apply a concept and it's not generalizable, it becomes a construct. I'll come into that later. If I say table and table is not generalizable in our mind, that is a construct. But if I say table and it's generalizable, it makes a concept. If I decide to measure table and give it a value, that is a variable. It's no more a concept. But I will come to constructs and variables in this tutorial. Another good definition of concept from what we have discussed here is that it is a general image of what we conceive in our minds. What we have in mind is the same. And because it is a general mental image, it is said to be an abstraction. So a concept is an abstraction of a particular human behavior or in explaining characteristics of a thing. But whatever the abstraction is, it is still generalizable. That makes it a concept. Another good explanation of a concept from what we have seen now is that because it is an abstract that is generalizable, a concept is a lower order abstraction. That means we cannot conceive the meaning of concept differently from one another, but our interest is not on measurement. So let's see how concepts are classified, because I've talked about table and anxiety. You can touch or feel about it, feel a table, but to feel anxiety, you need to check some activities that makes up anxiety. So I've made a very important attempt here to classify a concept into two categories. The first classification is the tangible concepts. They are concepts that are concrete, which means you can get to know them in their physical nature, or they are directly observed. For instance, chair, mobile phone, pencil, as the case may be, you can easily see these ones. They're in their physical nature, you know what they are. When we talk of height, you can easily see that someone is tall or short. The same applies to other examples that have been listed here. So tangible concepts are what you have a clear picture of what they are. That is directly observable, tangible. You can see them, you can show their physical nature. Any concept that you cannot easily show its physical nature is simply described as intangible concept. That means they are abstract in nature. Their physical nature is not easily observed. For instance, this word academics or intelligence, skills, achievement, as the case may be. It is difficult to show someone what an academic is, or what academics are, or what intelligence is. It is difficult to show someone. There are activities that you need to explain to show that it's a concept, and that makes it intangible concept. So because their researchers' interest is about measurement, giving value, they tend to move forward using intangible concepts to apply in their specific research use. When a researcher makes a specific use of intangible concepts in its own meaning, it's simply said to be a construct. So let's look into constructs a little bit. So a construct is simply said to be a concept that is consciously or deliberately adopted, invented, or constructed by the researcher or a theorist for the purpose of explaining given phenomena. Remember, this word construct is constructed. You can combine two or more words to form a construct, but remember, it is an intangible concept. Per se, is an intangible concept. That means it's difficult to observe. So when I say Microsoft Office skill, I've just tried to adapt something or construct something or invent something. Instead of just saying skills, I've applied that skill as in the area of Microsoft Office. That makes Microsoft Office skill as a construct. So it has been constructed, and the essence is to use it for a specific purpose. So constructs are also image that a researcher or a theorist conceives in mind for the purpose of the research. Like I said, skill is a concept, but when I have made the image of a skill towards being Microsoft Office skill, it may not mean the same in general idea of what a skill now is said to mean. So in concepts, they are generalizable, but in constructs, they are not generalizable. They are somehow operationally used by researchers to explain a given phenomenon. Another thing that we can tell about construct is that it is an abstraction, just like a concept. They are both abstractions, but the major difference is that a construct is not usually generalizable, but a concept is often generalizable. Another meaning we can discuss here, knowing that a construct is an abstraction, not usually generalizable. It is said to be a higher order abstraction. Remember, the concept is lower order abstraction because we can generalize it. But here, construct is higher order abstraction because even the meaning of what we are talking about may be different from the general meaning. That makes it a higher order abstraction. Knowing that a construct is something you can see, is something that is intangible. it is necessary to measure that intangible thing. So to address this kind of concern, we just have to classify constructs. I've actually made an attempt here to classify constructs, and I've been able to classify constructs into two, even according to literature. The first classification here is called constitutive constructs. They are constructs that are simply defined by referring to other constructs. They are usually multidimensional in nature. If I say academic achievement, or I want to explain academic achievement as a researcher, students' academic achievement, this is a construct. It is constitutive in the sense that I decide to look at academic achievement in the order of students' cognitive learning outcome, psychomotor learning outcome, and affective learning outcome. So these are three dimensions: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective learning outcome. That explains academic achievement. That makes it constitutive constructs. The same applies when an engineer wants to measure electricity and goes by the use of these three dimensions. That makes it constitutive constructs. So constitutive constructs are usually explained by referring to other constructs. They are usually multidimensional, just like academic achievement. If I decide to measure it this way, it becomes cognitive, psychomotor, and affective learning outcome. That makes it a constitutive construct. Another construct we can talk about is operational constructs. If a researcher decides to measure a given construct by specifying the basic activities used to measure it, explaining such a construct is said to be operational. Take for instance, if I want to measure academic achievement, students' academic achievements with the use of only exam scores or only GPA, that makes it operational constructs. Know that academic achievement is more than just exam score. It can constitute scores from cognitive learning outcome, psychomotor, and affective. But using only a set of scores that are obtained, for instance, from cognitive only, it makes it operational constructs. Business success is another example here. If I measure business success with just profit, or I try to explain business success with just profit, it makes it operational constructs. So whether constitutive or operational construct, researchers' interest is to assign value to these things in order to measure them qualitatively or quantitatively. That takes us to variables. In an attempt to explain variables, I've brought some definitions here. A variable is a factor, and this factor can be concepts or constructs or measurable characteristics that varies or changes from one group or setting to another. Remember this word variable, and this is what varies. It's an aid to memory. Variable varies, they change. Take for instance, if I mention sex, which is male or female, it changes. A group can be called male, another can be called female. So variables are factors that varies or changes. So for it to vary or change, it means we assign values to them. So when a concept or construct is assigned value for its measurement, it is said to be variable. So any construct you give values to, or any concept you give values to in order to measure it, it's no more concept or construct. It is now called a variable. Let's take an important note here that there are factors that you can easily assign values to. For instance, sex. I can assign value of 1 and 2 to male and female respectively. That makes sex a variable, no more a concept. I can measure weight. Instead of just the mental image of how fat or how slim, as the case may be, an individual is, I measure it to get the value. In getting that value, it makes it a variable. So these are easily variables that you can easily assign values to. So any factor you can easily assign value to, they exist and they are variables. But there are variables that you cannot easily assign values to. So factors or constructs that are not easily assigned values to them. But we may need to raise set of items to measure them. For instance, if I want to measure teacher effectiveness, if I want to measure how effective a teacher does in his place of work, I may decide to raise items like, say for instance, 5 items of a scale or a questionnaire to measure that. In that case, I am now making teacher effectiveness a variable, but that kind of variable has a name, latent variable per se, while the items I formed to measure that teacher effectiveness are said to be observed variables. The same applies when we talk about self-efficacy or academic satisfaction. They are difficult to measure. They are not easily assigned value to, so we raise items. So any construct, which are often we know that constructs are not easily assigned value to, that you have assigned value to by raising items to measure them, that construct is simply called latent variable. So teacher effectiveness, if I have raised items to measure it, this word teacher effectiveness becomes latent variables. The same applies to self-efficacy or academic satisfaction. If I use items to measure them, the word itself, which is like, for instance, academic satisfaction, if I use like 6 items to measure it, itself is called latent variable. While the items I use to measure that latent variable is called observed variables. So observed variables are those factors that are easily assigned values to in order to measure latent variables. Please take note that these two terms are very important in this tutorial, because in my future tutorial I'll be discussing structural equation modeling and path analysis. These terms will be used very, very importantly. So let's know that we have variables that we can easily assign values to, and there are variables that we may not easily assign values to. Variables that are not easily assigned values to are called latent variables, and that means they were constructs, but because we have raised items to do that, they are called latent variables. All right, I will not like to just end this lesson that way. There are different types of variables. In this tutorial, I've made an attempt to list the different types of variables, just mentioning them. I'm not going to explain them. There is a video, so look out for my video that practically explains the types of variables with a practical demonstrations using research titles, research questions, and research hypotheses. So I made an attempt to do that in that video. So that video will get to you soon, very, very soon. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to get that video as soon as possible. So the first type of variable under this place is simply the independent variable. So we have independent variable, we have it's simply the dependent variable. So we have the dependent variable, independent variable. Sometimes researchers categorize these two under independent variable, which are called active variables and attribute variables. We also have the moderator variable, which is sometimes called the secondary independent variable. Then we also have the intervening variables, sometimes called the moderator variable. Please take note, these two are not the same. I know that sometimes early researchers or student researchers get confused of these two. They are not the same. Like I said in my video that explains types of variables, you are going to understand this very well. So look out for that video. We also have some other types of variable, and one of them is extraneous variable. We also have the confounding variables. Sometimes they say confusing variables. In my video, we explain why some people call it confusing variables. So we also have the control variables. The extraneous variables and confounding variables are not the same. I have also, in my experience, seen that sometimes individuals think they are the same. They are not exactly the same. There's a thin line between the two. So if you've not subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to subscribe so that my video on types of variable, you will get to know the difference. But because of interest in quantifying variables, we also have other categories of variables. One of them is qualitative variables, and qualitative variable has two types, which is nominal variable and ordinal variable. Then we also have quantitative variable, which includes discrete variable and continuous variable. These two categories of variable, which is qualitative and quantitative, are often grouped in educational measurement or statistical measurement as scales of measurement. So in scales of measurement, we have nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and discrete and ratio scale. The discrete and continuous variables are examples of interval scale, as well as examples of ratio scale. So like I said earlier, look out for my video on types of variable to get a practical demonstration of variables using research titles, research questions, and research hypotheses. I know you don't need to miss that video because it will help you very well in your future research. Before I bring this lesson to an end, let's just look at a glance into concepts and constructs. This concept, construct, and variable this time around. Like I said, a concept is a generally accepted empirical abstract. Empirical simply means observable abstract. But the interest is not on its measurement, but they can be tangible or intangible. Table is tangible. When we have a mental image of what table is what? A concept. And when we have a mental image of what anger is, it's a concept, because the interest is not on its measurement. If I decide to adapt a particular concept, it becomes a construct. So the adapting of it or inventing of it is for the purpose of explaining a given phenomenon in research. So a concept is generalizable, but a construct is not generalizable. A construct is usually intangible concepts which can be grouped into two. But that's not interest here now. So when we decide to measure concept or measure construct, they become variable. So if I get the size of a table, that becomes variable and no more concept. So when I decide to measure anxiety using set of items, or measure teacher effectiveness using set of items, teacher effectiveness, which is construct, becomes a variable, but it's called latent variable. While the items I used to measure that teacher effectiveness becomes observed variables. So observed variables are concepts or constructs that variables are concepts and constructs that we assign values to in order to measure them. And the purpose is for data analysis and drawing inferences in our research. I believe from this tutorial you can see that there is a difference between concept and construct, concept and variables, constructs and variables too. So they are not exactly the same. One leads to the other depending on what the researcher is doing. But before I bring this lesson to an end, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you have not done so, in order to be getting my videos as they come out. As you subscribe, please share this video link and show that you like my lecture, my tutorial. You can make comments so that we can keep this YouTube channel busy. Then continue watching my video. I also encourage you that look out for my video on types of variable for this lesson to be complete. So once again, subscribe to my channel and continue watching. I would like to say bye bye for now. See you in my next video.